Good afternoon. This is Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. My name's Andy. I'm going to be the host for the next half hour or so. This is the show to jump on board with if you're in construction. Anything from sparks, plumbers, roofers, chippies, spreads, anything really. We give you advice. We have a good old laugh like us trades do. We've had all sorts of subjects. Who's the messiest trade was a popular one. Spreads naturally won that, with sparks closely second. This week, slightly more serious topic, but obviously with such big numbers watching this, we got an element of responsibility to sort of show compassion to issues which affects all of us. And joining me today is Paul Joseph, who is head of helplines at the charity Missing People. Paul, thank you for joining us. Firstly, quick intro. The charity Missing People, could you tell us all just a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the charity Missing People is the national charity for anyone affected by the missing issue. So that's families who've got someone missing, but also young people, children, and adults who may be missing or thinking of running away themselves. And we run a 24-hour helpline where people can get in touch with us by phone, by text, by email, or by live chat at whatever point of their journey with a missing issue they're in. And we also work with police and families to create publicity appeals, which I'm sure people have seen, to try and help find people who are missing. So kind of, our missing posters we distribute quite widely. And obviously that's a really vital part of our work, and definitely something that that sort of people who tune into this will be able to help with.
Well, one good thing, which I suppose I sort of understood, but it was your sort of notes that you sent across. With being tradespeople, we do move about. We're not stuck in
Yeah.
one place or one office or whatever. So tradespeople, certainly the ones that travel quite a lot for their job, are going to have a lot more, if you like, sights of something that's maybe not right. So
Yeah.
when does somebody become technically missing? This is a bit of a thing we were talking off air. What
Yeah.
class is a missing person?
Yeah, it's I mean the definition is somebody whose whereabouts is unknown, and it's out of character that they're not where they're supposed to be. There is always a sort of myth, and I think maybe it's an American thing about waiting 24 hours to go missing. There's always these cop dramas where they're like, you have to wait 24 hours to file a missing report, and that's actually not the case here. You know, someone is missing as soon as there's concern about them, really, or they're not where they're supposed to be. And obviously, people can bring in a bit of common sense to that if you're meeting someone and they're 10 minutes late for something. But if you're getting to the point where your partner's meant to have come home from shift for dinner at 7 o'clock and it's 11 o'clock at night, and they've not gone to the pub because you phoned around all their friends and that kind of stuff, and it's out of character, and you're really, really worried about them. We would encourage people to contact the police and report it as a missing person, and then take it from there.
Well, I think one thing we'll get into is when that person becomes missing, because as you say, we've had TV dramas or American cop stuff where it's this 24 hours, and um, us trades do like a damn good laugh,
Yeah,
and obviously when Johnny the labourer has disappeared into the sight bog for an hour,
yeah,
we know he's not missing. But would
yeah.
you say, if someone's gone for longer than you think, do you call straight away, or would you say
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
leave it a certain
that
time?
that that's a really good point. And obviously, when it's your mates and people, and you know what people's habits are, that's fine. And obviously, it's when it's out of character, it's that kind of, and what you do is, if he goes off into the box and then is always there for a long time and then he's not, you would take reasonable steps. You go knock on the door and find out and do what you can. And then if you still not got the answers after a certain amount of time and you're worried, take reasonable steps to phone around, see where people are, see if anyone else knows anything. We'd always tell people as well, phone our helpline. We get people all the time calling us where they're really worried about someone and they're not sure what to do next, and we can kind of talk through some of the things that they might do, because often, particularly when you're panicking about someone, there might be things that you've not thought about, so we can help someone think that through. But then, yeah, I mean, if once you've sort of done all those checks and whatever, and if it is out of character, then I think it's worth putting a missing report in. Yeah.
So you're almost saying don't be afraid of picking up the phone, because us Brits are certainly, oh, maybe they'll be all
Yeah.
right, they're a bit late.
Yeah,
You were saying off air, even if someone picks the phone up, they've got a concern that someone's missing, they walk in the door. It's better to
yeah.
have picked the phone up than left it.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when I was a volunteer on our helpline many years ago, and it was something like a Saturday morning, and I was on the call, and there was a mum who was really worried about her daughter hadn't come home, and we're talking about different things. And I was sort of saying, does she often stay at friends and different things? And no, she would always let me know. She'd always text me, etc., etc., etc. Really worried. I talked through the process about how to report missing to police, some of the things she might do, and then she was like, "Hold on, she's here," and I was like, "Great!" Well, it was great, and it was a happy ending. But of course, if she hadn't walked through the door then, and then 10 hours later she's still not, nobody knows where she is, you've probably lost quite a lot of vital time in kind of in looking for her, or the police looking for her with their kind of resources. So yeah, I think people can sort of follow their instincts, think about what they know about people, and obviously the thing is as well, when it's sort of colleagues or people who you work with, some shifts you're with them, some jobs you're with them, some you're not. People can be a bit worried about thinking they're overstepping the mark or whatever. So I'd always say, maybe think about, well, who else knows them? Are you in touch with anyone else who knows them? Anyone knows them on Facebook? That kind of stuff, and kind of just maybe make a few little inquiries. But then, yeah, if it comes to the point where you're really worried about someone and you're worried something's happened, then you know it's fine to make a missing report, and the police will then go through their own processes of assessing the risk and kind of asking what's happened, and then working out what they'll do next. So yeah, I think it's something people shouldn't be afraid of doing.
Well, anybody watching, if you've got any form of question about when to report somebody missing, or if you've even had an experience of someone that's gone missing, please put a comment up, because don't be afraid, because listen, it's an awful thing, somebody going missing, and if you've got questions, Paul is your man to ask, so don't be afraid to throw a question up. Now, this show kind of ties in quite nicely with Saturday's World Mental Health Day, because
Mm,
as we were saying off air, a lot of construction workers do suffer with mental health for
yeah.
millions of reasons. And I'm sort of thinking, if you've got mental health problems, suddenly a child of yours hasn't come back, that's going to
Hmm.
affect you a lot worse than if you haven't got mental health problems. So
Yeah.
that's something as well, which adds to the concern, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and we work with families who have had people missing a day, a week, a month, years, even decades, and we aim to be there for people at any stage of their missing journey, whether the person's been missing for short term, long term. And the families we work with, of course, they'll always say, it has a real detrimental effect on their mental well-being. And if they've already got you know um, problems with their mental health or issues they're going through, it's just going to make them worse. And that's the thing. We're not, if someone in your life goes missing, it's not like the rest of what's going on in your life just stops. You've still got to earn your money. You've still got to look after the
Yeah.
kids. You've still got to make sure your kids are all right. And if you're, imagine if a partner goes missing, and you've still got to get the kids up and go to school, even though you're going through the worst, darkest times in your own head, worrying about things. And it is really difficult for families. And yeah, it's so we really want to make sure that we're there for people for that. And it also, the interesting thing about missing is it can be a very isolating thing, because
Mm.
not many people will necessarily know anybody in their own social circles, their mates, their family, or anything, who will have been missing or know someone who goes missing. However, it's something that could happen to anyone. I mean, heavens forbid, but like my partner might go missing. None of us are immune to being affected by it if it happens. Um, but it does mean that, if it does happen, families can find there's not really anyone they can talk to, because people, don't, in a society, unfortunately, we do have to deal with things like grief and people we know passing away and bad things happening. But we have certain ways of coping with that, and we have certain, we have funerals, and we have different, and the sense that things do move on. But then if you're, if you someone's had their son's been missing for 5 years, people can start feeling a bit awkward around them, and it might be a bit like,
Mm.
that they're also seeing maybe all their child's fat sort of peers kind of having their 18th birthday and their 21st birthday and that, and people might then feel a bit awkward talking to them about stuff. So yeah, it's a really difficult thing. And obviously you said about World Mental Health Day, it's yeah, it has a huge effect on people. And for people who are missing themselves, quite a lot of people go missing because they're going through challenges with their mental health. And of course, being missing and that pressure and what you're going through, both the emotional side of stuff and the worry, and maybe even the physical side of it, if you're having to sleep rough or kind of being exploited, or all the awful things that people can go through when they're missing, is also going to have a really detrimental effect on people's mental health as well. So it's really important that we're there for people. And there's lots of different types of mental health help out there, but often people don't necessarily know where to go in the first place. They don't necessarily know if they're entitled to it. So we spend quite a lot of time talking to our callers about kind of what sort of thing might work for them, looking up some resources locally they can go to, maybe suggesting some other helplines that can help with a specific issue. And I would always just say to anyone, whatever you're going through, reach out. There are helplines there, and actually the benefit of having someone to talk to when you're going through a crisis point can really help sort of de-escalate it. And all these helplines, they're there for you. And I think people think that, oh, they're using a resource someone else should have, and it's like, no, like I run this helpline service. I wouldn't want anybody who was worried about things to the extent where they were having to go missing or were missing themselves to hesitate. And same with all the helplines like Samaritans, Calm, Sane, Childline for younger people. That's what they're there for. And in the helplines world, we're trained to be there to listen to and talk to people. And also the great thing is, even now, I know some people it's a bit awkward to talk. So there's different ways that people can communicate. We respond to people by text. We respond to people by email, by one-to-one chat, and lots of other services do as well. So I kind of think people should recognize as maybe it's not the exact help they need to sort out what's going on, but it's something that might help them get through the next day, 24 hours, just by having someone. And we when we sort of train our staff and volunteers, we initially people are like, oh, I don't know all these issues. Do I need to know about housing law? Do I need to know about all these different things? Because obviously the reasons why someone might go missing could be 1,000 different things, or a combination of 1,000 different things. And we can't be an expert in all of them. But what we can be an expert in is actually just listening to someone. And actually, if someone can phone up and say they've been going through something really terrible, and they hear someone who goes, that's really rubbish, you've had a really bad day, what might help, what do you want to talk about, and just kind of be there for them. And also not, because also the other thing is, when people are going through lots of issues, they worry about other people worrying about them. So sometimes they don't want to worry their partner, they don't want to worry their family, they don't want to worry their kids, they don't necessarily want to worry their colleagues or whatever. And actually, so when they can speak to someone who doesn't know them, they can be a blank canvas to, and who's not going to respond or react in a dramatic way, or kind of then overdo anything. That can really help them to kind of get things right in their head.
I think a big thing as well is, I'm going to be brutally honest. I've been through some rough times in the last 4.5 decades, and one thing I did, I just pissed off. So when I was younger, I'd just get on the plane, and I went and lived in Sydney for 8 months, worked out there labouring, and when a relationship breaks down, or difficulty with family or work, the first thing I do, and I know other friends do it as well, is you don't want to be around people. You want to disappear. But when you come back to it, the big thing, we did a series on mental health, and Neil Allen has asked if we can do a show on men's health one week, as we don't talk enough. Yes, Neil, we will be. We did a series, can't remember, last year, maybe year before, but yes, two construction workers a day take their own life. We've got huge mental health problems, and being in it on the tools, I know the reasons why. And I'll look into this camera now. I've been at the depths. So let's talk about it more. Great comment. But the one thing you said, Paul, is when you're talking about mental health, or you've gone missing, you want to hide, it's you just want someone to listen. You don't necessarily want all this advice saying, right, do this, do that, set your diary to do this, you need to eat this. It's just getting it off your chest and having someone to listen. And I guess that's what your team does, is when people phone up,
Yeah,
is be that person to listen.
definitely. And I think also as well, there's times when it can really feel like there's no options, there's no choices or whatever. But actually, sometimes if you get a chance to have someone to bounce a few ideas off you as a bit of a sounding board or whatever, there might be some options. There might be, and we know it's always a way, isn't it? Like, quite often we know the best thing to do for ourselves, but we won't do it. we need someone to tell us to do it. And obviously we're not going to tell people, we're going to just maybe reflect and make a few suggestions, and also help people, once they've had that chance to talk about things, and someone to say, you know what, you've not done anything wrong, this stuff happens all the time, kind of, then that can make people feel a bit more relieved to then move on to take whatever steps next. But one of the great things that we can do at the charity, and actually attracted me to become a volunteer here many years ago, was we have a service called Message Home, where if somebody has gone missing, needed to take a break away, even like long term or short term, and then maybe don't feel ready yet to talk to family members, but they want them to know that they're okay, they can pass a message on to us, and we'll call the family member and pass that on. And that can really be a powerful thing that can really help someone, because then they've got the pressure of at least their family know they're okay, and at least the family, and then the family hear from them, and also we can then maybe pass a message back and that kind of stuff. And we can even eventually connect people on a three-way call where we can be on the line just to support the person. And that's a really powerful thing to do. If someone can say, leave a message saying, I'm really sorry, I'm just going through a tough time, I'm okay, I'll be in touch soon, that
Yeah.
can bring so much. Obviously it's not the perfect response, family member want to see them and hug them, make sure they're all right, but at least that can help. So we'd always encourage people to use us for that, if
Well, I
that's going to
think,
help. And
yeah, I think, sorry to interrupt, but I don't want to miss this comment. Dean Thornby, listen, there's lots of reasons we might go missing. We're struggling with mental health. Dean Thornby, this is one that's so common. A lot of the viewers, and I've been on the tools for years with my little building company. Hardly surprising, is it, when you get home and the missus is saying you don't love them because you've been at work 6 days a week, because you love your family and you're doing your best for them.
yeah.
This is so. I mean, years gone by, I would do 6, 7 days a week, and running your small firm, that's not just 8 to 4 or whatever hours you're
mm,
doing.
mm,
You're going to look at jobs in the evening. You're pricing jobs. You're
yeah.
doing your best for them, and
Yeah.
that you almost feel you're inadequate. And Dean, it's a brilliant point. I've seen far too many people going, "I can't work any more hours, God sends," but it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be enough. And
Yeah.
the easy option, and it is an easy option, is just to do one and just wander off.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly. And also the added pressure of, you don't know necessarily when the next jobs are coming. You can't
Yeah,
say, right, I'm doing this now, I'm going to have the same work pattern for a year so I can relax and whatever. So it's almost like you have to make the most of job opportunities and work when they're there. And of course, if it's then meaning that you're then not getting to spend much time with family, or as you say, even like the missus is saying, oh, you're all you're doing is working and not really sort of seeing that can be really hard. And we do speak to people who have, they've ended up having arguments, and money's quite often a thing, money and debt and all that kind of stuff. And quite often people just do think they just need that space, just then get away, think,
yeah,
kind of walk away from things.
yeah,
But then of course they can then worry that it's made things worse and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just, any way people can get that bit of support of someone to acknowledge, what you're really doing your best, none of this is your fault, life is difficult, because it is, it's right. And what with all the pandemic and stuff as well, and we've had loads of people who have contacted us being affected by that, like, I think anyone who's just keeping their head above water at the moment, it's incredible. And it's always that thing as well, isn't it? Like we always talk about, like, the swan gliding along the water, that it looks calm and it looks like you're doing it and you're getting the jobs done and you're bringing the money in and whatever, but underneath the legs are like that, just moving. So yeah, so I think that's a really, really valid point from Dean there.
well, let me sort of turn it around a little bit. If you know somebody at work, or a family member, it could be a brother or sister you work with that goes to work, and you think something's up, I mean, this might be a totally different question for a legal person, but um, technology these days, obviously, it's quite easy to see where somebody is through
Mm,
GPS and all these apps that can trace people and stuff. Where is the line? Because some of these apps, you can see where your partner is, or you can see where your work colleague is. Um, there's then the other thing of, I'm going to be honest, going through my separation, I had a private investigator follow me for 3 months. My ex-wife put a private, and nothing to say because there was nothing going on.
mm,
But you
mm,
know that gives added pressures.
yeah,
Where is the line where you might think, all right, my partner or brother or dad is struggling. I want to track him or her because I'm worried.
yeah.
When they could turn around and go, you've overstepped the mark here, mate.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a really hard thing to get that right. And it's like, technology brings so many opportunities, but also it's such a double-edged sword with sort of things like that, isn't it? And we if you think about it as well, like quite often people who go missing, quite a lot of adults with dementia go missing, and actually family members, if they have some way of tracking the person a bit better. And actually we've done a big project with Lowland Search and Rescue where we've actually been got funding to from People's Postcode Lottery to train, uh, help them train dogs that are specific. But what they do if someone's at risk of going missing is they can get a scent kit from that person. So say if someone's worried about their mum who wanders off a lot, they can
Yeah,
actually just get a bit of clothing or whatever, keep that in a special kit that the rescue organisation provide, and then when they do go missing, straight away the dogs are trained to follow that and that. So it's kind of like any of these things, it's kind of just using it for the right reason. And I think within, that have, and I guess just asking yourself, well, actually, have I got enough of a reason to do this? Is the person able to be informed about choices about them that I'm making? And of course, it's always easy with these things if you can have a reasonable question, a reasonable
mm,
conversation when it's not difficult. So for example, saying someone, you know, and you're a dad, and obviously at the moment your little ones hopefully aren't going out and about too much, but in a few years time you've got all that to worry about. And you might sort of say to them, I've yeah, you can go out, but I am a bit worried, about you coming back. So I'm going to ask you to activate the find your phone thing on the
yeah,
on
yeah,
your phone, and that's part of my agreement for me to pay for your phone or whatever. And similarly, someone might say to their partner, "Look, I'm really worried about you driving around late at night, coming back from jobs when the weather's really bad. Can we just agree that yeah, I can." You share your location with you and stuff like that. And I think it's just kind of common sense, really, isn't it? But of course, when it comes into stuff like you said before, the purposes of, it's sort of more like snooping on people or private investigating for other
yeah.
reasons, then that can be really difficult to deal with, and can make things worse, really.
Well, I think going back to what we talked about, the hours, the 6 days a week, 7 days a week, Tom George has said a point which we all need to listen to. No amount of money will ever buy a moment of time. I have young kids, refuse to work weekends. You can miss out on so much. Totally agree. Mine are now 6 and 8. And it's frightening. Suddenly your 8-year-old daughter is going shopping and, trying to put makeup on. And it wasn't that long ago that they were not even walking. And I think
Yeah.
one thing I've learned through lockdown is obviously I've not been working that much on the tools because people have not wanted us in their houses for various
Mm,
reasons, doing any work. And one thing I've learned from this is everyone needs to take a step back. And yes, it might mean a day's less money, but look at ways you can maximize your profits. And, as Neil Allen said, you work so much, you end up ruining your family life. So get that balance right. And that
yeah.
means you're not missing time with your family, your young
Yeah.
kids growing up, your wife or whoever it is. And I think one thing this has taught us is money's not everything. We were on the merry-go-round before lockdown and was, I've got to earn money, I've got to earn this, we can do this, we can have this holiday, this car. But let's take a step back and actually concentrate on being a better family person or a better friend. I One thing really hit home for me was I had a radio show for a couple of years before doing this, and one of the guys I worked with, early 60s, the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He moved down to Portsmouth, and he kept saying to me, listen, I found this great local pub. It does a great pint of ale. You got to come down. Life gets in the way. I got a message from his daughter. He passed away 2 days ago. And forever
Mm,
now, I'm going to be thinking I didn't have that pint of ale with my mate because life got in the way. And I think this is teaching us take a step off,
yeah.
take a step back from all
Yeah.
the day-to-day stress, speak to your mates. And this ties in with people going missing. If it's a child or a work colleague or family member, pick that phone up and
Yeah.
say, how you doing, mate? Do you fancy a beer? I know at the moment with lockdown and all the rest
Yeah.
of it, it's tough. But would you say to keep numbers down? We've got this the ticker, the numbers going across the bottom of children that go missing, which is
Mm.
horrible. But picking up the phone, speaking to people that may be vulnerable, would you advise that in these difficult times?
Yeah, I mean, always the value of reaching out is always really important. And both friends, family, making sure they're all right. And I think a lot of a lot of some of the positive stuff that's come out of lockdown is people becoming a bit more aware of neighbours and different things, and what's going on around them. And of course, there's statistics there about the children going missing. I mean, obviously that's a really worrying thing. Unfortunately, a big proportion of those children are found very quickly. But part of the Find Every Child appeal is the sense that if it's your kid that goes missing, you would want the world to stop and everyone to look for them.
Yeah.
And so we'd want, if someone's worried about their child, just to report it right away.
Let me ask you then, Paul, what tradespeople, we travel a lot, we go to suppliers during the day, we travel to jobs sometimes an hour or two.
Yeah.
What do we need? Hopefully this has raised awareness of this, but what do we need to look out for if we see something that up till now we've thought was fine or normal?
Yeah.
Are there little telltale signs where you could be thinking that's not right?
Well, one thing I'd say that can really help start off with is obviously when someone is officially missing with the police and with the consent of the police and families, we can produce a publicity appeal to find them. And that's basically like a poster that goes online. It can be downloaded. We send it to various places. The IPG actually display some of our posters in their stores, which really is making a really big difference. And obviously, but also those appeals can be shared on Twitter and Facebook. So if anybody follows our social media, they will then see, for like followers on Twitter at Missing People or on Facebook, they will see appeals of missing people. And of course, the tradespeople might be the people who are out and about and might see something or might spot something. And so we'd always say, if you see something, you can call us. We can take sightings and pass them directly on to the police. Sometimes people don't really want to go through the police directly. We can take the sighting, pass it on exactly as you pass it to us. You can even choose to be anonymous if you want to, and we won't pass your details on. You don't actually have to give us your details. You can give us the sighting. So yes, if people can kind of follow our appeals and stuff, that'd be really great, because obviously they are out and about in places where other people might be. And then also it's kind of looking out for people who might be in a bit of a bad way or kind of acting a bit strangely, or for example, like I know organizations like the Samaritans have done loads of work training people who work on stations to kind of look out for people who their behavior might be a bit odd. It might be indicating they're on the platform with a plan to take their own life. So similarly, if people look a bit lost or a bit strange, and particularly, unfortunately, a lot of missing stuff is to do with, for young people, to do with child sexual exploitation, criminal exploitation, and stuff like, quite often young people, girls and boys as well, who are groomed and kind of might be in groups where it seems like it's a lot of older males, it's that kind of stuff. So I think people just look out for stuff. And the other thing as well is our missing posters and our missing appeals, they are to have sightings, but also they appeal to the missing person directly to say, look, if this is you, contact us. You might think your only options are the police or the family, but actually there's a 24-hour helpline that's there for you, that's confidential. Go through. So if someone does happen to see someone who's a missing person and has a chance to talk to them, let them know. If you wanted some help, phone Missing People.
Paul, unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I'd like to say thank you ever so much for coming on. Hopefully it's raised awareness of the charity.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to IPG for sponsoring today's show. And listen, the way I look at it, it's a bit like mental health. If there's one person that can be helped from this show, it's done its job.
Exactly.
Thanks for all the advice, and fingers crossed we can get that statistic down. This has been Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. We've been talking about raising the awareness of missing people. Thanks again to IPG and my guest Paul. Now, next week, everyone watching, get the word out, because we are going to have a virtual tear up. The question is, who is the most skillful trade? Now, I'm a multi-trade, so I'm going to be sitting on the fence a little bit. But bricklayers, you run the line. Do you think that's skillful? Joiners making fancy kitchens, spreads floating and setting old Victorian walls, roofers, well, moaning because you sit on the roof and don't do anything all day. We know what you're up to. Let us know. Get in touch. Please send comments as well, because next week, who is the most skillful trade? I guarantee the numbers will be big. And I'll tell you what, I guarantee it's going to be a cracking tear-up. And you vote for the winner on the comments. So thanks everyone for watching. Get your boxing gloves on for next week, because it will be back with who is the most skillful trade. Have a great afternoon. See you next Thursday.